College basketball went through a bit of a shock on Friday as Alvaro Folgueiras decided to leave Iowa and make his way into the transfer portal after a legendary moment to send Iowa to the Sweet 16 with the shot against Florida. Alvaro Folgueiras is going to be on the move next season, trying to reach a bigger payday. It sounds like from the reporting out there, Folgueiras is a 6'10 Spaniard who sank the Dagger three against number one Florida in the NCAA tournament. I think that there is a tendency for some people to kind of, panic in this situation, but I don't think this is a situation where Iowa needs to panic too much. Look, I loved Al. I think Al did a lot of good things this season, but we also saw Al go up against Illinois in the Elite Eight, and it was not exactly pretty the way that worked out for him. Didn't have much of an offensive game and wasn't really able to do much against Illinois' size. So he's not a five. Credit to him. He did take time playing the five this season, but overall, the Robert Morris transfer, who did a good job in the Horizon League and came to Ben McCollum this season to average 8.4 points per game, 3.6 assists, shooting 50% from the field, and only, or I say only, it's not a bad 3-point shooting percentage, 33.3% 3-point percentage. He's going to be on the move. And there's a whole lot kind of behind the scenes with this one here. While I do think that there are some talking points with different things going on, I also think this was probably a mutual parting of ways. Alvaro Folgueiras had a very good March Madness. Obviously, like I said, the dagger, the shot that was able to win the game against Florida, that was a huge moment. I think Alvaro thought, I'm going to get some more, financial investment for next season type of deal. And I'm not saying that Iowa like slashed his payment or anything like that, but I don't think Iowa was willing to pay him as much because Ben McCollum, he is a dude who is hyper focused on winning. Ben McCollum, that's all he cares about. That's all he wants. And at the end of the day, if you are not going to be able to provide what he needs for your team to win, then he's going to move on from you. Does that mean that Ben McCollum wanted Alvaro Folgueiras to leave? No, I don't think so. But I do think it was a situation where he was saying, look, we have to spend money smarter on some of the guys that we bring in. And we'll talk about the potential of some of those guys here in a minute, but we have to be smarter. And right now, Ben McCollum, it didn't sound like he saw the potential trait improvement that maybe other people kind of get excited about, right? Other teams are going to see that big shot that he made against Florida and say, there's a ton of potential there. He can make that happen. Apparently, there's some Big East schools, some SEC schools that are going after Alvaro. And this situation, rumored to be some that are even willing to double what Alvaro was making last year at Iowa to move on. So a lot of people out there wanting to pay for him. To me, it was only a matter of time before he moved on. I think Ben McCollum, obviously, leaving Ben McCollum doesn't sound like a great career move, but when you have the opportunity to go out there and make double what you were making last season, especially for him going into his senior year, I don't blame Alvaro at all. And I think that this was probably a bit of a relief for Ben McCollum. Again, not saying Alvaro's bad. I like Alvaro. I think he did a lot of good things this season for Iowa. But I do think that Ben McCollum is seeing his team built now. And I do think he has a bit of a Dusty May aspect to him, a bit of a Matt Painter aspect to him as well, where he doesn't want to just bring in good players. You see some schools try and do that, and it doesn't typically work out for him. But he doesn't want to just bring in good players. He wants to bring in players that are going to fit his system, players that are going to fit together, and the weaknesses and stuff like that are not going to be as evident because of the working together and how the team operates together. And I think that Ben McCollum is a master at making that happen. We saw it at the D2 level. We saw it at Drake. We saw it later on in the season with Iowa. We didn't necessarily see it the entire season. There were some big games they lost, but there were also some big games they played really well in. And Ben McCollum had his team find a way to get there. So I got a ton of love for Ben McCollum. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. I think he needs to, probably get to a Final Four or something like that before he gets into the best coach in the country type of conversation. Probably nationally. I still think he's one of the best coaches in the nation, but that's just me. I'm a bit of a Big Ten homer. I'll be honest. It's who I am. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I do think that Alvaro Folgueiras moving on does provide Iowa some more options here to kind of move on and do some different things. Let's take a look at some of those options. So one of those options is from Belmont, and I apologize if I butcher his name, Drew Scharnowski, I believe is how you pronounce it. The forward, 6'9", 230, going to be a junior out of Belmont, 10.7 points per game, 6 rebounds, 2.6 assists in this season from three. He only shot 20%, but of course he only took 5 threes. So he's not going to be the 3-point threat out there type of guy, but he is going to be a type of guy who can go out there and score for you a little bit. 10.7 points per game from the field. He was 68.1%. You love that type of efficiency. Now, of course, he's going to the Big Ten, where it's going to be a little bit more difficult, obviously, to score down low, but you love that kind of efficiency. The big thing for me are the free throw numbers. 61 of 140 this past year. He had a worse free throw percentage than he did field goal percentage. Not good. Not good, Drew. We're going to need to see that increase. We're going to see that get better. But obviously, Ben McCollum sounds like he sees something here. I didn't put him on the watch for a visit list or anything like that because I think we are in the very early signs of chatter with Drew here. But I definitely think Drew is a type of guy you can look for to maybe be that Alvaro replacement type of guy out there. Another guy, and we mentioned him a little bit earlier in the previous segment here, Andrew McKeever. Now, Andrew McKeever, like I said before, 7'2", 285, going to be a junior. No big news coming out about him, but that doesn't necessarily mean something bad. No news is sometimes good news. So we'll see what happens when stuff starts coming out a little bit about McKeever. But I don't what I had told to me has not changed. Iowa is the team that is going after him the hardest in the portal, and it's because Ben McCollum, he's not looking for, a great scorer or anything. He's not looking for something. He looks at his guards and his wings and says they can handle that more than anything. He's looking for a guy with size. He's looking for a guy with defensive abilities and a guy that has the ability to rebound. And when you talk about traits and a guy you can go after and really develop him and help him learn, McKeever is that guy. He didn't have the best, block numbers, only 0.8 blocks per game this season, but you did see an ability to contest shots pretty well. Now, you would think at 7'2", if you can contest shots, you can block shots, but there's probably just a little bit more development to that game that probably needs to happen. I would not be surprised if next season he hovers around 2 blocks per game if he goes to Iowa. And I think Ben McCollum is selling him on that as much as he possibly can to say, look, you come here and we are going to turn you into what you should be and maybe even get you to the NBA someday. The other big that Iowa is looking at right now, and it's the big that everybody's looking at, so I don't even mention them all that much because we just don't know. But the Louisville transfer, Sananda Fru, the 6'11", going to be senior from Germany, 9 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 1.2 assists per game. He does have some more polished defensive, play around him. 1.4 blocks per game. Not as much of a rebounder as McKeever was, but McKeever was also at St. Mary's, and so that's a little bit of a lower level there where he could dominate that, and obviously at 7'2", dominate that a little bit more. A couple other guys, and we're not going to spend too much time on them, but a couple other guys to keep on the lookout. We mentioned him for Ohio State, but he can also be looked at here for Iowa, and I really like where Iowa stands right now with Isaiah Johnson. Not saying they're going to get him, but I do like where Iowa stands with Isaiah Johnson right now. Good stuff there. Kion Evans, and these are not even all of them, guys. These are just a few guys that I think are worth mentioning for the way it sounds like stuff is going. Kion Evans from North Carolina didn't have a whole lot of production this season, only 4 points per game, but he did have production last year, 10.6 points per game, and shot almost 45%. You estimate it up, he shot 45% from three in that North Carolina or in the Colorado State uniform 2 years ago. Very interesting stuff. He shot over 100 3-pointers that season and shot an estimated up to 45% from three, which is very, very good, obviously, for him to do that. So Kion Evans, see if he can come in and do something for you. And then the guy that sounds like they're getting the most traction with, I mentioned him as a potential visitor for Iowa coming up, Ace Glass from Washington State. He has some abilities here, 6'3", 185. He was a freshman this season. You bring him into Iowa. He was a 36% three-point shooter on 195 attempts. So he's got that volume. He's got nearly 90% free throw shooting percentage, and he was able to average 16.4 points per game. Coming up to the Big Ten would obviously be a different level, but obviously Ben McCollum does know what he's doing with these guys. So we will see, Hawkeye Nation, what happens here. But if I were Hawkeye Nation, I'd be pretty excited. Losing Alvaro, yes, it hurts. There's some emotional attachment to him with the Sweet 16 run and all that other stuff. But I do think this is a situation where Iowa will be fine. Sounds like Ben McCollum knows what he's doing, and I trust Ben McCollum to get it done.